Kudos to the writers to be able to make an episode of Dexter with no murder the most interesting episode of this season. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something new, be among the first to know. That 1 week hiatus is over. We're back. Dexter's fans, we've been satiated. Our dark passenger is being fed. Episode 7 of Dexter is here. The big bad body problem. We are on the back half of the season, coming in for the home stretch. And we get a pretty big reveal in this episode that I'm going to be honest with you, I did not see coming. There's a couple of tales in this episode that sort of give that that's where they're heading, but overall was completely floored. Well done. And I think what this show has managed to do is that even if you are a Dexter diehard, you've done both series before, you won't be surprised or on the edge of your feet as whether or not Dexter is getting caught. But the story is so interesting and fascinating to see how he sort of gains the tools in his tool belt as he goes along, but as well to sort of see what the story is here. The important piece isn't necessarily whether or not Dexter makes it out or gets caught. Fans know that's not the case. The story here is who's doing what and how does Dexter get them off the board. In what ways does those new tools, how does he go about learning his new tools to get to that point, and seeing that process. So we pick up at the end of the last episode where Dexter is trying to dump off the body of Levi. Unfortunately, he gets to a swamp and it is a crime scene. Body parts are sort of floated up above, and he gets there and he easily gets out of it, which is good for me as a fan. I knew this wasn't going to be a hard part for him to get out of, but he flashes his badge and say that he is here to be forensics and to do some blood spattering and testing. So he is part of Miami. He uses his Miami PD card, gets onto the site. Masuka's already there. Masuka's like, wait, what? I thought I was going to have this bad boy by myself, but look where it is there. It is an official crime scene. Everybody's there. Mind you, he gets out of the car. He still has Levi in the back truck. Now, for some who have not seen any of the other Dexters, this is a precarious situation and it's a little bit nerve-wracking. Us diehards know he's going to be all right. Masuka asked Dex to pull prints off the arm of Tony that came up, with the one with the ring. Dex is trying to think on his feet because he's looking at the hand. He's like, it's not completely decomposed yet. So if I were to pull a partial print, it's probably going to find pieces of Dexter on it. So he needs to find a way and think quick to get the rest of that arm to decompose. So he comes up with the brilliant idea to, hey, this alligator came up on the land, tried to take me out, and in the process got the arm, which is smart. He heard there were people warning him as he even went on to the scene. Hey, be careful! There are live alligators out here. So he uses that to his advantage. He's like, oh my God, they almost got me. And he's like, oh no, but they also got the arm. Thinking on his feet. But Guerrero's a little upset, like, oh my God, are you serious? You lost the arm? Masuka's like, he could have died. And so she has to sort of calm down off the anger she's going to give towards Dex. And Dex knew that was going to be the case. Like, yeah, he may have been an idiot and sort of made a mistake and lost the arm. But at the end of the day, they're going to be okay with him because they're like, well, Harry's kid, he's alive. Just a big F up. But the arm's gone. Arm's back underwater in the alligator's mouth. At the very least, if it is to ever return, hopefully it would have been decomposed enough now that it's irrelevant and Dexter can go kind of scot-free. He will be. Now that that's done, he has to still dispose of Levi that's still hanging out in his trunk. So he takes that to a landfill. Basically, he takes it to a trash can that's headed to a landfill. He has to get into the trash to sort of hide pieces of it so that it's not readily seen when the trash man comes to dump it. He needs it sort of hide enough so that it can make it to the landfill. So he's getting in the muck of it. He's getting dirty. He's got trash all over him. He's going to smell like hot mess, and people comment on it as he goes along. But he gets it done. He gets it done, gets him off to the landfill, and so the last you're going to see of Levi is in this massive growing landfill. So then he makes his way back home. Dex gets home and starts eating because he hasn't satiated his dark passenger enough with killing Levi, but in the mix of all of this, people have been talking about food, talking about dinner. He's just always hungry. So he goes home and just starts consuming, inhaling a bowl of spaghetti while also smelling like hot ass, like just trash. Deb comes out of her room and is like, "What are you? This is disgusting. Both you, the way that he's eating, and the way that you smell." She's like, "My brother, you smell terrible." Deb also is upset that Dex has been dodging Sophia's calls and pages. She's been consistently paging him. While he was trying to dump Levi, she was paging him. She's paging him a couple of times now. And Dex doesn't know what these, she's doing it in code, but she has no clue what these numbers mean. And Deb reads them and was like, "Why are you ignoring me?" Basically, Dex just ghosted her. And Deb was like, "How are you ghosting her after she blew you? Like, what are you doing? Who does that?" Just having no sort of decorum on how to treat her, because that's not his first hair. And you'll see if you've been a fan of this, even when he gets towards adult life, he never really gains that skill of having to have a relationship. But now Sophie is pissed at him, comes to bite him in the butt just a few moments later. Harry comes home and gives Deb a little bit of a pep talk and say, "Hey, good job. You're close to getting that scholarship. Well, good job on getting on the team, getting the head thing." And like, there's someone coming to watch her, one of her meets, that's going to probably be the sign off of her scholarship to get to FSU. She's kind of proud of it, and he gives pride to her in that. So there's at least a bit of a moment where they have a father-daughter sort of relationship. He then asks Dex to catch him up on everything that's happening, and Dex just lays it all out there, everything from dumping Levi, this crime scene all being his old body parts and whatnot, and it drives Harry to smoke. He is once again leaning into his vices. He cannot control his dark passenger of always sort of falling in line and falling back into the bad vices that he has. He can't stay on the straight and narrow. After a shower, Dex is starting to head off to work, and Sophia comes to cut him off and gets out. Sophia's there to pick up Deb. But she comes to cut Dex off and just sort of checks him about like, how could you just ghost me like that? Like, how are you forgetting me? And Dex is like, "Look, I've been at a crime scene." And she's like, "Oh my God, was it a murder?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he sort of leans into it. He got a little bit of a game. He learned a little bit of thing. He's like, "I almost got eaten." And she got super like, "Oh my God." And she starts to make out with him and kiss him and then she begins to straddle him. But she clocks that there's a wrapper of a Trojan in the car, and she just starts flipping off. And Dex is like, "Well, for him, it just makes sense like that was in trash, so that's probably coming from the trash." And she's like, "Well, you just told me you were in the swamp, so which is it? You are a liar. You're cheating on me." And she just storms off. And then Dex goes to work. Dex doesn't have time for this. He's like, "Well, cool. I guess that's out of my hair now." And she goes to work, and Sophia pulls off. And then Deb comes out of the house. Is like, "Well, what the hell? Like, where's Sophia?" She's gone. Just leaves Deb there, so she has to find her own way to get to school. Captain Spencer's kid, Nikki, is clearly a bit smarter than the previous um, the judge's kid, Jimmy, in that he breaks out of his sort of chains and sort of creates a weapon, a shiv, if you will, which is going to come into play a little bit later. While that's happening, the team are in the bullpen at the precinct, and they're having sort of a powwow. It's been 4 days since Nikki's been taken, and so this is about the same time where the judge's kid they were sent an appendage, his finger, to sort of proof of concept that he was alive and so on and so forth. So we're about time for that to be happening for us. So time's of the essence. At that point, LaGuardia and Harry sort of tell Captain Spencer that the case that they're working on with those 3 bodies that they have found are probably all attached to one serial killer. And that's the theory they're running off of, and Dex kind of smiles a little bit because he overhears it. It's like, "Well, that was the idea that I gave you. I like that y'all running with it. Cool." So they're going to go lay this out for Captain Spencer to sort of discuss it. And he kind of is like, I don't believe it. He mainly doesn't believe it because look where it is leading it. But Harry sort of backs her up, and he's like, "Well, all right, well then go with God, find me some evidence, and make it happen." We get our first flashback of the episode, and Laura is freaking out. She's gotten cabin fever, not because she's stuck in a home. She's gotten cabin fever because she's been stuck in this life for a year. And she doesn't see a way out. And Harry keeps saying, like, "Look, I promise you, just get on the wire, Estrada, saying something about his operations. The second you do that, you're out. We're done. I'll pull the plug on this." And she's like, "Well, what if I just choose to say no? What if I choose to be out right now and just be done with all of this?" And he's like, "Well, then in that scenario, you would go to jail and your kids would be put up for foster. She's like, cool. Now I see who you really are, and I just see, for the most part, I was just a piece of ass to you. And she's like, well, you should go home. You should go home now. And he's about to leave, and then Dexter, little Dexter, comes running out calling Harry daddy. And she's like, no, nope, that man is not your daddy. He is Mr. Morgan, and he is just now leaving. And so whatever thing they once had is dead on both of their ends. She sees that like there's no option. She's just being used. And I think Harry realizes that he was just using her, and she's sort of fulfilled that need, not necessarily a using for sex, but a using to get some type of relationship, because his relationship back home was just transactional up until this point. Now that he has a kid, he's sort of now separating himself again and being like, yeah, that's no longer the case. This is now, you are my CI. This is what I have to do. He returned home, still in the flashback. He returned home to Doris, who is there folding clothes with the baby. He tries to give her a kiss on the forehead, and she's like, nah, I don't want no parts of that. And he's like, look, I need to tell you why it is that I cheated. She's like, I don't want to hear that. I don't know. And she has a good line, is that she's like, you want to tell me that so that you can feel better, but it's not going to make me feel better. And he's like, no, we need to understand. Everyone need to just put all our cards on the table, put everything that we have out there so that we can grow our love and grow our trust back together. If we don't do that, if we're not completely honest with us, it's not going to get back to that. You hear little Deb start crying a little bit. And so Harry goes to go take care of her. And so sort of show his first sign of being fatherly and sort of taking some of the weight and pressure off of Doris. And at that point, you can see that Doris sort of falls back in and says, okay, I think we can make this work. And it's just a little bit of reconciliation moment between them. Deb makes it to school and catches up with Sophia, who is just crying, just in a bad way. And Deb was like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, your brother cheated on me. And Deb was like, Dex, please. I had to push him on you, which does not help the situation at all. She's doing everything to make her feel better, but also at the same time stick up for her brother. Saying like, my brother he's not a cheater. He's just not that type of person. He's not a player. And at that point, Sophia's like, I can't believe that you're taking up for your brother instead of me, your friend. He's like, Deb's like, he's my effing brother. Of course I'm going to take up for him. Which is a recurring theme for Deb throughout her entire life. Based on what happened in the last episode, Officer Spencer pulls Dex aside for a moment, like, hey, so the people here in the precinct don't know my orientation, and I would like to keep it that way. And Dex like, oh, okay. And Spencer continues to tell him, like, look, I moved from where I was to Miami to sort of get a new life. My family didn't approve of me. I needed to go where I could live my best life as myself and not feel like I have to hide it from anybody. And Dex like, well, you're hiding it from people here. And he's like, yes, outside of this, hide it from everyone else. And Dex like, cool, your secret's safe from me. It's not going to come from me. I love this, and I feel like the reason that we're getting this thread, it immediately flagged to me that based on the case that Harry and LaGuerta are doing, where most of those folks are on the LGBTQ at that point in time, there was no IA, but LGBTQ spectrum, and killed, I feel like that's going to happen to Spencer. And the only person that's going to sort of know the connecting fiber between them all is Dexter, and that Spencer was gay. And so he's going to probably get killed at one of these bars or whatnot. And so I think that's why they're putting that thread and hitting that so hard for us to know in this episode. Otherwise, there's no real point to hit that hard here. We also get to sort of get some foreshadowing, a little bit of Angel and his character. Angel is examining the photos from the crime scene of the swamp, and the hand actually has the ring from Tony. He immediately clocks that that's Tony, the bookie who was talking about, who killed his family. And so he's like, I need to get to the bottom of this and investigate this to see what happened to him. And Dex is like, well, do you really? Do you need to do that? And so he sort of tries to get him off the arrow, because Angel's like, this isn't justice. And Dex is like, it seems like justice. I think if you took that photo with that ring to your family's rest of their family and friends, they would be like, cool, he got what he deserved. I don't know if you need to waste your time when somebody who's already been justice has been served when Captain Spencer's kid is out there, and that would be a little bit more focused. And Angel's like, I appreciate the pep talk, Dex. Thanks. But it just shows you he got away with it this time. Dex sort of moved him off that platform, but it just shows to show you that Angel, in the long term, has always sort of had this like, yeah, we got the man. This person has been found, but he should serve time. He should be a person of justice. This time, he's too young to sort of speak up for himself and say how he actually truly feels. Mainly because his captain kid is um, actively missing, so it's something that supersedes everything. But I think it just shows to show you who Angel is and how that's going to come around in the future. Nikki gets his captor to enter into the cell. And in doing so, slices him a bit, and then gets his arm bent back and his finger taken off. So the tables turned very quickly. It did not go at all like he thought it was going to go, and he wound up in the exact same situation that Jimmy did. Continuing on the case for Harry and LaGuardia, they get a lead on finding the car that was around the crime scene of their last victim. They go to check it out, and it's a father and daughter who were there who purchased this car from someone. They don't know who well, they do know this person is, but they're not giving that information to the police. They're stonewalling the cops in regards to that. They just know that the car was purchased for $350, but these folks have zero to do with that. They need to find out who was the person that gave it to them. While prepping for their next game, might have been practice, Deb looks longingly at Sophia. Sophia sort of looked longingly at Deb, like, all right, I do still like to be your friend, like I miss you type of thing. But then Tiffany, Deb's rival, comes running in and starts accusing Deb of ruining her car and putting sand into her and her boyfriend, Gio. And she knows way more information than she has any right to being, and Deb immediately checks that Sophia gave her that information. And Sophia's like, well, sorry, can't always take your side, which is petty. Well played, Sophia, but petty. Yeah, we get some catty girl stuff here. So at that point, the Tiffany pushes Deb, and Deb returns a nice punch to her nose. It looks like breaking her nose because there's just blood coming out of it. And then she gets hauled off to the principal's office in a nice suspension and kicked off the team, we learn later. So much for that scholarship, which is, I would imagine, just starts spiraling Deb further and further down a hole and pushing her more towards Gio. After Dex starts spending time in the records room, trying to just get fire under him to find out what his next path is, who's his next victim to sort of choose something, and nothing really clicks off, nothing enlightens him or grabs his attention. So he goes back up to the bullpen, starts hanging out in the lunch area, and starts having a conversation. Just sparks a conversation about, hey, what would be some good locations to dump a body? Because Spencer's up there saying that the swamp would have been a good spot to dump a body, and Dex felt like this was the perfect time. Like, let's do a roundtable about this, and sort of starts getting information from people up until Harry joins the conversation, and he kind of just looks at Dex like, really, this. Really? Dex then gets a page from Sophia that Masuka's like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I think I'm in a doghouse. And Masuka's like, don't worry. I got something I can send back that will immediately get her back on your good side. So he pages her back and leaves a message. Dex asks him, like, what did you say? And before he can get an answer, Bobby and Angel start coming into the precinct with a box, which everybody sort of knows based on what happened to Jimmy. They sort of know what that box represents. And it is a finger. So whatever was sent, we don't get to find out. Tracy calls Dex and Masuka into the lab to just study the finger, to investigate it, while everybody else just sort of waits out. Aaron comes running in. Captain Spencer comes running in and freaking out, like, I need to get in there. I need to get in there. It's like, nope, let them do their thing. Dex is still having a hard time. This is his enlightening moment. He's like, now this is what I want to do. Whoever's responsible for this is the person who I want to cross my table. Because if there's a no-fly zone for Dex as far as killing, it's kids. He is not about that at all. And so while Tracy and Masuka are investigating the finger, they're looking at the aperture, they're checking the cut. It matches what happened to Jimmy. It's clear that it was done by shears. They have oil on it. They have blood on it. While they're looking at that, Dex clocks that on the box that it came in, there's a small speck of blood that would appear to not be of the same blood that came from the finger, because that blood would have been splattered all over the place. If it was cut and torn, like ripped off like the way it was, it would have been a spray of blood as opposed to just one droplet. So Tracy says, good looking. Check that. Go ahead, grab that blood, put it in the slide, sample it, and test it out. So you see Dex sort of prepare the blood. He makes a blood slide, which you get a cue. This show does it a lot, but whenever there's something that is sort of going to be added to the repertoire of Dexter, you get sort of a sound cue that's like, remember this. I immediately saw the slide. It's like, I see where this is going. So anybody who's a fan of the first season, couple seasons of Dexter's, slides are a big piece of what the blood slides are a big piece of what Dexter sort of holds on to as we go along. Tracy comes to Captain Spencer and confirms that the finger is that of Nikki's. She's trying to sort of tap dance around it and not be as clinical and by the books as it in the air, and just like rip the band-aid off and just go for it. They're like, yeah, we have no leads, no fibers. There's nothing on the box, but Dexter did find a blood piece on the box that we're going to take to forensics, and they're going to give us a read by tomorrow morning. This priest is important because when you realize what happens at the end, Aaron's response about Dexter being the one to find it is sort of his first tale that I could kind of pick up. I picked it up then, but I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know what we were going. But when we get to the end of this, him and the way that he responds to Dex is sort of how Dex responded to finding the nurse. Like, oh, she's just like me. Aaron kind of clocks in at that point, like, oh, Dex, okay, Dex might be a problem. He's sort of, let me keep an eye on that. They all leave, and Spencer indirectly tells Harry, he's like, hey, I want you to be a part of this. Buckle down on whatever this case is and find what's happening. But before you can do that, LaGuardia comes up to him and says, hey, I got a read on that car. I know the original owner of it, and his name is Paul Petrie, and he lives in Tampa. It's about 3 to 4 hours away. Let's take a road trip. So they make their way down that way. We get another flashback piece, probably the longest we have without Harry being a part of it. It's a flashback of just Laura. I love this story structure. I'm not gonna lie to you. However, these flashbacks are getting more and more ridiculous in the fact that this show is framed as if Dexter's life is flashing before his eyes. Flashbacks, period, are hard to believe if Dexter's not a part of them. But the Harry ones I can sort of take, because maybe at some point in time, reading through files or whatnot, I can get to this point. The one that's just Laura is like, okay, guys, I know there has to be, they're going to give it to us at some point. There has to be a point to all of these flashbacks. We got to get to it. I will say this, though. This flashback is good. In this flashback, Laura goes to basically, she gets accosted by Estrada's men outside as she's about to go home after shopping. She has to drop her bags down, drop her purse down, and just get in the car. She's freaked out because this is the first time she's not wearing a wire. No one's following her. No one's tracing her. She has no backup. She is just going in blind to whatever it is she's going into. These men take her to Estrada's home. Looks like his home. They have her go into her room and have her strip down and then put on a robe. Obviously, she's told to strip down because they're checking to make sure that she's not wearing a wire. They then escort her to the pool area where Estrada's there getting some lapsing in the pool. Estrada basically is like, hey, do you swim? She's like, yeah, I do. And she takes off her robe, all completely naked, and gets into the pool. And that's sort of Estrada's way of saying, okay, cool, I can trust you enough because in this moment you don't have a wire on you, and we can talk shop. If you want to talk, now's the time to talk. We can do this while I know you're not wired up. It also is a way, it's a power tactic on his behalf to sort of know that I am the alpha, you are below me. I can have you get naked. You can do whatever the hell you want to. I can think of you as nothing to me. So he's playing two levels. It's like I make sure you don't have a wire, but I'm also letting you know whenever I say jump, you're going to jump. He questions her about why are you doing this? Like you can find work doing whatever you want, providing for Dexter and Brian. Yes, he knows their names. He's done his research, and it kind of freaks her out a little bit, but she rolls with the punches. Um, but you can find whatever it is you want to do. Like you don't have to put anything where your life could be in danger. Why are you choosing this? And she's like, I want this. I want the comforts. I want the lavishness. I want all of this. He's like, okay, got it. I am opening up a new chapter of my business, and we're doing a big shipping thing. I think he says next Tuesday, and he wants her to be there. And she's like, okay, cool. Where she gets a little overzealous is that she asks, like, well, will you be there? And he kind of gives a look, but then she's like, I want to learn from you. You are the best at this. I want to learn at your foot, if you will. And he's like, okay, well, you and I will be in touch. You will see me again. And then as she leaves, he just tells his men to keep an eye on her. Back in present day, Dex gets the page from Sophia, and the whatever Masuka sent did not work because the page says go to hell. I can read those numbers. That one I didn't need a code for. Um, but Dex starts digging more into the fingers, and he sees that there's a different sort of cut on the fingers from Jimmy to Nikki. The Nikki one has a hesitation cut, as if the person who did it cared or had some sort of connection to Nikki and wasn't as ready to just business as usual, just do it. Like I said earlier, after Punch, Deb's not automatically going to get suspended. So she got suspended, kicked off the team. Harry finds out, and Harry's like, well, that was sort of the plan to get you into FSU. Like, I don't have the money to do so myself. And she's like, well, maybe team sports aren't what's for me. I've got some things to go figure out. I'm going to go do so in my boyfriend's place. And Harry's like, wait, what? You're grounded. And if you leave this place, you're grounded. And Deb's like, really think that through, Dad. Does that make a lot of sense? You're saying if I leave this house, I'm going to be stuck in this house forever? Nah, that doesn't work for me. So Deb runs into Dex as she's leaving, and you can tell that she does have some remorse for what she's done. Like she knows she has sort of just thrown a wrench into any sort of plans that she has, and she feels bad. She's like, "I really effed this one up, didn't I, Dex?" And Dex sort of consoles her the best that he can without showing true emotions, but he gives her some sound advice. He's like, "Next time, Deb, just don't get caught." And Deb's like, "Cool, thanks, Dex, appreciate you." And she goes with Gio, who just comes and picks her up. I do think this happening sort of pushes her more towards him. And with what seems to be a lot of money, she may get her school still paid for and sort of then be on the hook to him in some way. When Dex comes back to the office, to the precinct the next day, the next morning, he goes immediately to go see what the results were from the blood test that he got. And Captain Spencer's at his desk, looking at the lab, looking at the blood work, and Captain Spencer says, like, well, fortunately, came back that it was the same blood for both. And Dexter immediately says, like, well, it could be somebody that's related to him. If it's the same blood type. It's not a 1-to-1 match. It could be somebody that's related. And he's like, yeah, well, fortunately, two samples are the same. And you can tell that he's trying to sort of move on and say, well, this isn't it. Dex then clocks that there's a bandage on the arm of Captain Spencer, and you can tell that it's basically what Nikki did to him. And he gives some lame ass excuse for the injury. He says, like, yeah, I was trying to fix the AC in my old ass busted AC in my apartment. But you can tell that he's full of shit. And Dex clocks it immediately, and it then comes pretty much like a wave, like a rush over Dex. Like he immediately says, like, "Oh, how could I have missed this? Captain Spencer is the person who was taking Nikki." And he says that would explain why the finger was cut twice. He cared about Nikki. He didn't want to do it. He had to do it. Um, Explains the blood, and then we get It's weird in that they did it right after in this episode. They then show Captain Spencer going to a store and buying the Lunchables that he keeps feeding through the door for Nikki. We already, as an audience, already had seen and know that he's the person. I don't know why they didn't have to hit it home in the same episode. I kind of feel like you could have ended right when Dex is looking at Spencer leaving, like, all right, call it there. I do think that we saw that scene because at some point, probably in the next episode, Dexter's going to start tracking Captain Spencer, and this is something where he's going to find him at the store. So I think they were just putting it in place to show the habits that eventually Dexter's going to see him in this same habit. But for this episode, it felt like, hey, we already had the reveal of a big twist. I don't need to then. I'm telling you, in case you missed me telling you what the reveal is, here is the true reveal. So I don't. You didn't need to hit it home that hard. But all in all, I love this episode. For there to be no death or no murder in this episode, it really tells a pretty intricate story. You get the tell pretty early about Aaron, and then if you rewatch it now and with this information, you're kind of going to see a couple more things that sort of pop out. Like, yeah, I see what's happening here. So yeah, I think Sanders is probably going to end up a part of LaGuerta and Harry's case. And I think the thing that's interesting about the Spencer piece of it all is why is he doing it? I feel like he's doing it to get back in good graces with his wife. I think he thinks he takes the kid off to sort of push her back to him and sort of get the dude out the way. That's the only reason I can sort of really play it out. Or he's in some type of trouble and has to do something. But I think that's less of a thing because I feel like he feels pretty callous in what he's doing. I'm also curious to see if he's responsible because they are done differently. Yeah, he's got to be responsible because it's using the same location. I was going to say if he's responsible for Jimmy as well, but he has to be because it's the places are the same. So I think the question is why did he start this up? Why did he start with the judge? Was it to create a pattern? Was it to create doubt that it's immediately like if he was he planning to do Nikki no matter what, but he needed to do one before that to sort of create a pattern so it's not obvious or people come straight to him? Maybe. But it's going to be fascinating to see these last 3 episodes to get the why as to why Captain Spencer is doing that. For me as a person who has seen the Dexterisms and knows the story that's happening with Laura and Harry, the flashbacks there, and knows that Dexter's not getting caught, outside of him gaining the things to his tool chest, that is the important story for me. And now they have me hooked. Now I'm in because now I want to see why Spencer is doing what he's doing. And you got me, sons of bitches. What did you guys think about this 7th episode of Dexter Original Sin? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI or email us at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have the podcast with the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.